The armory was her church, and silence was her sermon. For 11 months, Staff Sergeant Maya Torres had spoken fewer words than most soldiers spoke in a single day. The operators who cycled through Building 4127 at Fort Bragg barely noticed her. She was just
Prepare
the
for the
woman
exercise.
who fixed their
Stay
rifles,
sharp.
cleaned their barrels, and handed their weapons back in perfect condition. None of them knew that the hands reassembling their M4s had once held a rifle that changed the course of a battle no one would ever read about. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Maya worked carbon from a bolt carrier group. Her movements were precise, almost meditative. Every swipe of the cloth followed the same pattern she had performed 10,000 times. The smell of Hop's No. 9 solvent hung in the air, familiar as breathing. Specialist Derek Chen fumbled with a firing pin retainer at the adjacent workbench. His young face twisted with frustration. He had been assigned to her 6 weeks ago, fresh from ordnance school, and eager to prove himself. Right now, he was proving that eagerness and competence were not the same thing. The retainer slipped from his fingers and pinged across the concrete floor. Chen cursed under his breath and scrambled after it, his cheeks flushing red. When he returned to the bench, Maya was already holding an identical part between her fingers. She set it down beside his workspace without a word, without looking up from her own work. "Thank you, Staff Sergeant," he said quietly. She gave the smallest nod. The gesture was invisible to anyone not watching closely, but Chen understood. She had saved him from explaining to the armory sergeant why he needed a replacement part on his third day of solo work. The door to Building 4127 banged open. Maya didn't flinch. She had heard the approaching boots 30 seconds earlier, the distinct cadence of men who moved like weapons themselves. Special Forces, Operational Detachment, Alpha 7215. If the scheduled maintenance roster was accurate, it always was. 6 operators filed into the armory, their presence filling the space like a change in air pressure. At their head walked a man with a jaw carved from granite and eyes that dismissed everything they touched. Master Sergeant Cole Brennan. Maya had seen his type before, the kind who believed rank was permission to make smaller people feel small. Brennan dropped a rifle case on the counter with a thud that echoed off the concrete walls. "Got a barrel issue," he announced to no one in particular. "Weapons pulling left at distance." Maya set down her work and approached the counter. She unlatched the case and lifted the rifle in M110 semi-automatic sniper system with the careful reverence of someone handling a living thing. Her fingers found the barrel extension by instinct checking for wear, then moved to the gas block alignment. Brennan watched her with the expression of a man observing a mechanic he didn't trust. "You actually know what you're looking at?" he asked. "Or are you just going through the motions?" Maya didn't answer. She was already field stripping the weapon, her hands moving faster than his eyes could track. One of the operators behind Brennan, a younger sergeant with a sniper tab on his shoulder, let out a low whistle. "Damn," he said. "She's fast." Brennan snorted. "Fast doesn't mean competent. Any wrench turner can take apart a rifle. I need someone who understands what a precision weapon actually requires." Maya found the problem in under a minute. Microscopic wear on the barrel extension threads, invisible to anyone who hadn't spent years learning where to look. She held up the component, letting the light catch the flaw. Brennan squinted. "What am I looking at?" "Thread wear," Maya said. Her voice was low, slightly rough from disuse, causing inconsistent lockup. "I can refit it or order a replacement barrel." The room went quiet. It was the most anyone had heard her speak in months. Brennan stared at her for a long moment, then laughed. It wasn't a kind sound. "Well," he said, "the mute speaks. Guess even armorers have their talents." He turned to his team. "Though I suppose when your whole job is playing with other people's weapons, you pick up a few tricks." The younger sergeant shifted uncomfortably. "Come on, Master Sergeant. She found the problem in like 60 seconds. Brennan waved a dismissive hand. "Finding problems is easy. Any tech can do that." He leaned on the counter, his eyes fixed on Maya. "What I want to know is whether she actually understands shooting." He gestured at the M110. "You ever fire one of these armor, or do you just polish them for the men who do?" Maya met his gaze. Her expression revealed nothing. Another operator spoke up from the back of the group, a staff sergeant with a thick beard and tired eyes. Hey, speaking of shooting, did y'all hear about that supposed 800-meter shot? Some training footage got leaked. Command's saying it's fake. Brennan laughed again. Of course it's fake. Nobody makes a shot at that distance. Physics doesn't allow it. The bearded operator shrugged. I don't know. The video looked real. It's impossible, Brennan said flatly. Even the best snipers in the world top out around 3,000 meters in perfect conditions. Anyone claiming otherwise is selling something. The younger sergeant with the sniper tab glanced at Maya. Something flickered in his expression. Curiosity, maybe, or mischief. Hey, armorer, he called out. You ever wonder what it would be like to hit something at 800 meters? Maya said nothing. Her hands continued their work on the M110, steady as a surgeon. Brennan grinned, sensing an opportunity. That's what I thought. The people who actually pull triggers know the difference between fantasy and reality. He snatched the rifle case from the counter. Fix the weapon. That's what you're here for. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Though if you ever feel like proving you're more than a wrench turner, he said over his shoulder, Range 29 is open on Thursdays. I'd love to see what an armorer can do with a real rifle at real distance. His team filed out behind him, their laughter echoing down the corridor. The door swung shut. Chen exhaled. What a jerk. Maya didn't respond. She stood motionless at her workbench, her hands resting on the disassembled rifle. Her eyes were fixed on something far beyond the armory walls, somewhere in the distance that only she could see. 800 meters. She knew exactly what that distance felt like. The weight of the rifle, the whisper of wind, the eternal seconds between trigger pull and impact. She knew, because she had made that shot once, in a place that didn't exist on any official map, on a day that was never recorded in any official report. Her fingers brushed the workbench, and for just a moment, they trembled. Word traveled through Fort Bragg the way it always did. By morning chow the next day, half the special operations community had heard about the armorer, who could strip a rifle faster than their best weapons sergeants. By noon, the story had grown. She found a flaw no one else could see. She barely speaks. Brennan challenged her to range 29. Maya noticed the increase in foot traffic through Building 4127. Operators who had never visited the armory suddenly needed minor repairs. Cleaning rod replacements, sight adjustments, excuses to see the silent woman who had become the subject of barrack speculation. She ignored them all, her hands never pausing in their work. Chief Warrant Officer James Holland was different. He entered the armory mid-afternoon, moving with the deliberate economy of a man who had spent decades in places where wasted motion meant death. His hair was silver at the temples, his face weathered by sun and sand and things he would never discuss. He wore no unit patches, no identifying markers beyond rank on his chest. Maya recognized the type immediately. Delta, or formerly Delta. The quiet professionals who made special forces look loud. Holland didn't announce himself. He simply stood near the workbench and watched her hands as she reassembled a trigger group. Minutes passed. Neither spoke. Finally, he broke the silence. Interesting technique, he said. The way you seat the disconnector. Most armorers use 2 fingers. You use 3. Maya glanced up. His eyes were studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Faster, she said simply. Holland nodded slowly. I knew a shooter once who used that same method. Said she learned it from her instructor at a facility that doesn't officially exist. Maya returned her attention to the trigger group. Her pulse remained steady through sheer force of will. Lots of techniques out there, she replied. Holland smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He picked up a bore brush from her workbench, examined it, set it back down. I am assigned to special operations training now, he said. Moved over from the operational side 2 years ago. Bad knees. He paused, but I still keep my ears open. Hear things. Rumors about units that never made the news. Missions that never happened. Maya said nothing. Holland leaned closer, his voice dropping. There's a story about an all-female sniper element attached to Joint Special Operations Command. Call sign Phantom. 7 operators, all women, all ghosts. Supposedly, They handled targets the conventional forces couldn't reach. The trigger group clicked into place under Maya's fingers. Sounds like a campfire story, she said. Holland straightened. Maybe. He turned toward the door, then paused. But campfire stories don't usually come with classified files thicker than my arm. He glanced back at her, and they don't usually end up fixing rifles at Fort Bragg. He left without another word. Maya's hands remained steady, but inside her chest, something had shifted. A door she had sealed shut 3 years ago was rattling on its hinges. The memory came unbidden, wind screaming across a mountain ridge, snow and rock and thin air that burned the lungs. A voice beside her, calm and focused. Sarah's voice. Elevation adjusted, wind 3 clicks left. Send it when ready 7. The crack of the rifle, the eternal wait, the distant figure crumpling. And then the second shot, the one she didn't see coming, the one that took Sarah before Maya could even turn her head. Maya blinked, and the armory reformed around her. Her fingers were white-knuckled on the workbench edge. 3 years. She had buried that memory under routine and silence and the mindless comfort of mechanical work. She wouldn't let some curious warrant officer dig it up. The armory door opened again, and a different kind of energy entered the room. Sergeant First Class Sophia Reyes was compact and fierce with sharp eyes and the coiled tension of someone constantly proving herself. She wore the insignia of a cultural support team candidate, one of the women fighting to earn a place alongside special forces in the field. Staff Sergeant Torres, she said, I was hoping you could help me with something. Maya studied her for a moment. The younger woman's hands were calloused in the right places, her stance balanced, a shooter, or trying to become one. What do you need? Maya asked. Sophia hesitated. My rifle's not cycling properly during rapid fire. The armorer in my unit said it was fine, but I know something's wrong. I can feel it. Maya extended her hand. Sophia passed over her M4. Within 30 seconds, Maya had identified the issue. Gas rings on the bolt were worn unevenly, causing inconsistent cycling under sustained fire. The kind of problem that only mattered when fractions of a second determined survival. She replaced the rings without being asked. Her movements efficient and silent. Sophia watched with something like awe. How did you know to look there? Experience, Maya said. Sophia took the rifle back, turning it over in her hands. I heard about what happened yesterday. With Master Sergeant Brennan. She looked up. Is it true he challenged you to shoot at range 29? Maya shrugged. He talks a lot. Sophia's jaw tightened. He does more than talk. He's been running his mouth about women in combat roles for years. Half the CST candidates have had run-ins with him. She paused. He tried to get our program shut down. Twice. Maya filed that information away. Some battles weren't worth fighting. Others were unavoidable. She was about to respond when the armory door banged open for the 3rd time that day. Brennan stood in the doorway, 2 of his operators flanking him like attendants. Well, well, he said, spotting Sophia. The armorer is holding court with the pretend soldiers now. He strode forward, his boots heavy on the concrete. I heard you've been asking about range 29 access. Want to practice for our little challenge? Maya had made no such inquiry, but she didn't bother correcting him. Brennan smiled. Bad news. Range 29 is restricted to qualified personnel only. Snipers, designated marksmen, people who actually know what they're doing. He spread his hands in mock sympathy. Armorers don't make the list. Sophia stepped forward. That's not fair. If you challenged her, she should be able to prepare. Brennan turned his cold gaze on her. Nobody asked you, candidate. Go back to playing soldier, and let the adults talk. Sophia's face flushed with anger, but Maya caught her eye and gave an almost imperceptible shake of her head. Not worth it. Brennan laughed at the exchange. That's what I thought. He headed for the door, then turned back. The challenge stands, armorer. Thursday at 0800, range 29. Bring whatever rifle you want. He paused. Just don't embarrass yourself too badly in front of the real shooters. He left his laughter trailing behind him. Sophia exhaled sharply. I hate that man. Maya said nothing. She was already calculating distances, wind patterns, and the weight of a rifle she hadn't touched in 3 years. That night, alone in her off-post apartment, Maya sat on the edge of her bed in the darkness. The room was sparse, a cot, a footlocker, a single lamp she rarely turned on. She opened the bottom drawer of her nightstand and removed a photograph she hadn't looked at in months. Two women in tactical gear faces streaked with dirt and exhaustion arms around each other's shoulders. Mountains rose behind them, stark and unforgiving. The woman on the left was Maya, 3 years younger, with something in her eyes that no longer existed. The woman on the right was Sarah. Maya traced the edge of the photograph with her thumb, then slid it back into the drawer. A knock at her door shattered the silence. She crossed the room and opened it to find Holland standing in the hallway, his expression unreadable. "Staff Sergeant Torres," he said quietly. "Or should I call you Phantom 7? Maya didn't invite Holland inside. She stepped into the hallway and pulled the door closed behind her, her back against the frame. "How did you find that name?" she asked. Her voice was steady, but her pulse hammered against her ribs. Holland studied her for a long moment. "I told you, I hear things. I also know how to read between the lines of a heavily redacted personnel file." He leaned against the opposite wall. "Your file is classified. Parts of it. The parts that matter. But there are always breadcrumbs if you know where to look. Training records that don't match your MOS. Deployment gaps that don't add up. And a very interesting note about a marksmanship award that was rescinded for reasons unspecified." Maya said nothing. Holland continued. "Phantom was real. 7 operators, all women attached to JSOC for missions that required a different kind of precision." He paused. "You were one of them." The hallway felt smaller than it had a moment ago. Maya forced herself to breathe. "That unit doesn't exist, she said. "It never did." Holland almost smiled. "Of course it didn't. Just like the shot at 3,800 meters never happened. Just like your spotter never existed." The word hit her like a physical blow. Spotter. Holland's expression softened, the interrogator giving way to something more human. "I'm not here to expose you, Torres. I'm here because I recognize what I see." He gestured vaguely at her door. "You're hiding. I understand hiding. I did it myself for 2 years, after I left the operational side." Maya exhaled slowly. "What do you want?" "I want to know why someone with your skills is cleaning other people's rifles instead of using her own." The question hung in the air between them. Maya considered lying, deflecting, slamming the door in his face. But something in Holland's eyes told her he wouldn't accept anything less than the truth. "My spotter's name was Sarah," she said finally. "Sergeant Sarah Mitchell. We worked together for 4 years. She was the best I ever knew." Holland waited. 3 years ago, we were tasked with a target in the Hindu Kush. High value, time-sensitive, the kind of shot that required everything to go perfectly. Maya's voice remained flat, mechanical. "I made the shot. 3,800 meters, target eliminated. And your spotter?" Maya closed her eyes. "There was a second shooter, counter-sniper we didn't detect. He fired 3 seconds after I did. Sarah took the round meant for me." The hallway was silent, except for the distant hum of the building's heating system. "I finished the mission," Maya continued. "Extracted alone. Received a commendation that was immediately classified. And then I requested reassignment to the armory." Holland nodded slowly. "Because you couldn't pull the trigger anymore." "Because every time I looked through a scope, I saw her face." They stood in silence for a long moment. Holland didn't offer sympathy or platitudes. He simply absorbed the information with the quiet understanding of a man who had lost people of his own. Finally, he spoke. "Brennan's going to try to destroy you on Thursday. You know that." Maya opened her eyes. "Probably. He's sabotaged women before. Good soldiers. Capable operators. He finds their weakness and exploits it until they break or transfer." Holland straightened. "I've seen his type my whole career. He doesn't just want to win. He wants to humiliate." Maya shrugged. "Let him try." Holland held her gaze. The woman who made that shot 3 years ago wouldn't shrug. She'd already be planning how to take him apart. He turned and walked down the hallway, his footsteps fading into silence. Maya stood alone for a long time before going back inside. The next morning, Brennan's campaign intensified. Maya heard the whispers as she crossed the base. The armorer thinks she's a sniper. She challenged Brennan, and now she's too scared to practice. Probably never fired a weapon in her life. The rumors were lies, but lies had a way of becoming truth when repeated often enough. In the team room of ODA 7215, Captain Marcus Sterling listened to the buzz with growing interest. He was a pragmatic officer, more concerned with results than reputation. But even he couldn't ignore the commotion surrounding his senior weapons sergeant. "Brennan," he said during the morning briefing. "What's this? I hear about a shooting challenge with an armorer." Brennan grinned. "Just having a little fun, sir. She got mouthy about knowing rifles better than us. I told her to prove it." Sterling frowned. "And you think this is a productive use of training time?" "I think it's an opportunity to remind everyone what real shooters look like, sir." The captain studied him for a moment, then shook his head. "Fine. Thursday, range 29, but keep it professional, Master Sergeant. I don't want this turning into a circus." Brennan's grin widened. "Absolutely, sir. Professional all the way." Across the base, in a small classroom used for cultural support team training, Sophia sat alone staring at paperwork. Voluntary withdrawal request. All she had to do was sign her name and walk away from the abuse, the doubt, the constant battle to prove she belonged. The door opened, and Maya entered carrying 2 cups of coffee from the mess hall. Sophia looked up, startled. "Staff Sergeant, what are you doing here?" Maya set 1 cup in front of her and sat down in the adjacent chair. "Heard you were thinking about quitting." Sophia's jaw tightened. "Who told you that?" "Doesn't matter." Maya sipped her coffee. "Is it true?" Sophia stared at the withdrawal form. "Maybe." She exhaled. "I'm tired, Staff Sergeant. Tired of being told I don't belong. Tired of working twice as hard for half the respect. Tired of people like Brennan treating me like a joke." Maya nodded slowly. "I know the feeling." "Do you?" Sophia's voice carried an edge of frustration. "Because from where I'm sitting, you have it figured out. You hide in your armory, keep your head down, let people underestimate you. Maybe that works for you. But I can't live like that. I need to fight." Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. "The people who want you to quit are counting on you being tired. That's their whole strategy. Make it so exhausting to exist that walking away feels like relief." She set down her cup. "But here's the thing they don't tell you. If you walk away, they win, and they'll use your absence to justify everything they already believe." Sophia's eyes glistened. "What if I'm not strong enough?" "You are." Maya held her gaze. "I've seen your hands, shooter's calluses. I've seen your stance, combat ready. You've already proven you belong. Now you just have to outlast the people who refuse to see it." Sophia looked at the withdrawal form for a long moment. Then she picked it up and tore it in half. Across the base, in the privacy of his quarters, Cole Brennan sat on his bunk, holding a photograph of his own. 2 young men in army uniforms, arms around each other, grinning at the camera. Brothers, the one on the left was Cole, at 22, still believing the world made sense. The one on the right was Kyle, 19, about to deploy for the first time. Kyle never came home. Some sniper hiding in the hills, the report had said. Single shot. Never saw it coming. Brennan traced his brother's face with his thumb, the old rage burning fresh in his chest. Snipers were cowards, hiding, killing from distances that made them untouchable. And now, some armorer thought she could play at being one of them. He would show her what real soldiers looked like. He would break her the way his brother had been broken. Thursday couldn't come fast enough. The official terms arrived at Maya's workbench the following morning, delivered by one of Brennan's operators, with a smirk that said everything words didn't. She read them slowly. The challenge would take place at range 29, 0800 Thursday. Distances would escalate from 2,000 meters to the theoretical maximum the weapons could achieve. Each shooter would use a rifle provided by the range armory to ensure fairness. No personal weapons, no modifications, no practice runs on the range beforehand. The conditions were designed to bury her. Maya set the paper aside and returned to her work. Holland found her an hour later, his expression tight with frustration. "I tried to get the terms modified," he said, keeping his voice low. "Push back on the provided weapon clause." Sterling was willing to listen, but Brennan convinced him it was the only way to keep things fair. Maya shrugged. "It's fine." "It's not fine." Holland leaned against the workbench. "You haven't fired a precision rifle in 3 years. You're going up against an active Special Forces sniper using an unfamiliar weapon with zero preparation time. He shook his head. Those aren't fair conditions. Those are conditions designed to guarantee failure. Then I'll fail, Maya said. She didn't look up from the bullet she was cleaning. Holland studied her for a long moment. You don't actually believe that. Maya said nothing. He sighed and straightened. Sterling agreed to witness the challenge personally. That's something. At least Brennan can't pull anything too obvious with the captain watching. After Holland left, Maya continued her work in silence. But her mind was elsewhere calculating trajectories and wind patterns she hadn't thought about in years. That evening, after the armory closed, she made her way to Range 12. It was a standard qualification range, nothing special, with targets at distances up to 500 meters. Child's play compared to what Thursday would demand, but it was empty at this hour. And empty was what she needed. She signed out an M4 from the range armory and walked to the firing line. The rifle felt foreign in her hands. Too light, too short. Not the precision instrument she had once wielded, like an extension of her own body. But the fundamentals remained the same. Breath control, trigger discipline, the marriage of eye and hand and target. She fired the first round. Center mass. She fired again, and again, and again. 20 rounds later, the target at 500 meters looked like it had been attacked by a single hole punch. Every shot clustered within a circle smaller than a human fist. Damn. Maya turned to find Chen standing at the range entrance, his eyes wide. Staff Sergeant, he said slowly, how did you do that? Maya ejected the magazine and cleared the chamber. Practice. That's not practice. That's something else. Chen walked closer, staring at the distant target. I've seen Special Forces guys shoot. I've seen snipers qualify. None of them group like that. Maya said nothing. She began breaking down the rifle for cleaning. Chen hesitated. Is it true what people are saying that you were something else before you became an armorer? People say a lot of things. He watched her hands move through the familiar motions. You're going to destroy Brennan on Thursday, aren't you? Maya looked up at him. Her expression was unreadable. Go home, Chen. Get some sleep. He nodded and turned to leave, but paused at the door. For what it's worth, Staff Sergeant, I hope you do. Someone needs to shut that guy up. After he left, Maya remained at the range for another hour firing until her shoulder ached, and her hands remembered what they had tried so hard to forget. The next morning brought unexpected news. Sophia appeared at the armory door, her face flushed with excitement. I passed. Maya looked up. Passed what? The marksmanship evaluation. Sophia was nearly bouncing. I've been struggling with it for weeks, but yesterday I tried the technique you showed me, the 3-finger grip on the trigger group. It worked. My groupings tightened by 40%. Maya allowed herself a small nod. Good. Good, Sophia laughed. It's better than good. It might be the thing that keeps me in the program. She sobered slightly. I wanted to thank you for the coffee, for what you said, for not letting me quit. You did the work, Maya said. I just pointed you in the right direction. Sophia smiled. Well, consider me pointed. She glanced over her shoulder. I also wanted to warn you. Brennan's been talking loudly about how Thursday is going to be a lesson in humility for armorers who forget their place. Maya shrugged. Let him talk. Sophia's expression hardened. He's not just talking, Staff Sergeant. He's planning something. I can feel it. She leaned closer. Watch your back. The warning proved prophetic. That afternoon, Maya was restocking cleaning supplies in the armory's back storage room when the door slammed shut behind her. She turned to find Brennan blocking the exit, his massive frame filling the doorway. Just the two of us now, he said. No witnesses, no captain to impress. Maya remained still, her hands loose at her sides. What do you want, Master Sergeant? Brennan stepped closer. I want you to understand something. Thursday isn't a challenge. It's an execution. He smiled, and there was nothing pleasant in it. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've trained with the best snipers in the world. I've made shots that would make your head spin. Good for you. His smile faded. You think you're clever? Hiding in your armory? Playing the quiet professional? But I see what you really are. He jabbed a finger toward her chest. You're a fraud. Some paper pusher who got lucky once and thinks that makes her special. Maya met his gaze without flinching. Are you finished? Brandon's jaw tightened. I'm going to break you on Thursday, in front of everyone. And when I'm done, you're going to request a transfer to somewhere far away, where no one will ever have to hear you pretend to be something you're not. He turned and wrenched the door open, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. The rifle they're assigning you for the challenge? He laughed. I'd check it very carefully if I were you. Range weapons can be unpredictable. The door slammed behind him. Maya stood in the silence of the storage room, her mind processing his final words. Check the rifle. She waited until well after midnight, when the base was quiet and the range armory was locked. Her access code still worked. One of the benefits of being responsible for weapon maintenance across the post. She found the rifle tagged for the challenge. An M2010 enhanced sniper rifle serial number, matching the designation in the official paperwork. She began her inspection with the barrel working methodically through each component. Stock, trigger assembly, bolt, scope mounts. She almost missed it. The barrel extension, a hairline crack in the threading invisible to anyone who wasn't looking for it. The kind of flaw that wouldn't matter at close range, but would cause catastrophic failure at distance. Sabotage. Maya stared at the damaged component, Brennan's words echoing in her ears. Someone wanted her to fail. Or worse, someone wanted the rifle to blow apart in her hands. She set the weapon down and began to plan. Holland arrived at the range armory 20 minutes after Maya called him. He examined the damaged barrel extension under the harsh fluorescent lights, his jaw tightening with each passing second. This wasn't an accident, he said finally. Someone deliberately weakened the threading. At distance under the pressure of a full charge, this barrel would have fragmented. Maya nodded. I know. Holland set the component down. This is attempted assault, maybe worse. If that rifle had fired at 3,800 meters, you could have lost your hand, your eye, your life. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling CID. Criminal investigation needs to know about this. No, Holland stared at her. No, I want to beat him clean. Maya took the barrel extension from the workbench. If we report this, it becomes an investigation. Brennan denies everything. The challenge gets postponed, and everyone on this base spends the next 6 months whispering about how the armorer couldn't handle the pressure and cried sabotage. That's not what happened. It's what they'll say happened. Maya's voice was steel. I've seen it before. Women who report problems become the problem. The system protects its own. Holland exhaled slowly. So what's your plan? I'm going to fix it, and then I'm going to make it better than it was before. She worked through the night. The armory became her operating theater. The rifle her patient. She replaced the damaged barrel extension with a component from her own inventory, one she had been saving for a weapon that deserved it. She reseated the trigger group for a cleaner break, adjusted the stock for her specific length of pull, tuned the scope mounts until they were perfectly aligned. By 0300, the M2010 was no longer a standard-issue rifle. It was something else entirely. A precision instrument rebuilt from the inside out by hands that remembered exactly what perfection required. But her hands weren't the only things that remembered. The memory came without warning, as it always did. She was back on that mountain in the Hindu Kush, the wind cutting through her ghillie suit like frozen knives. Sarah lay beside her, pressed to the spotting scope, calling adjustments in a voice so calm it could have been discussing the weather. Elevation +2, wind drifting left 4 clicks. Target is stationary. You have the shot 7. Maya remembered the weight of the rifle against her shoulder, the steadiness of her breath, the world narrowing to a single point 3,800 meters away. Send it. The crack of the rifle, the recoil absorbed through muscle memory, the eternal seconds of bullet flight, and then the second sound, the snap of a round passing close enough to feel, the wet impact that followed. Maya turned to find Sarah slumped over the spotting scope, a dark stain spreading across her chest. The counter sniper's bullet had been meant for her. Sarah had shifted position a half second before checking a wind reading. The movement put her directly in the path of the round. She died looking at the sky. Her last words were a whisper that Maya still heard in her sleep. Good shot, 7. Now teach others what I taught you. Maya blinked, and the armory reformed around her. Her hands were shaking. The rifle lay before her, rebuilt and ready, but she couldn't bring herself to touch it. 3 years. 3 years of silence and routine and trying to forget. And now she was about to step back into the world that had taken everything from her. Maybe Brennan was right. Maybe she should just walk away. The armory door opened. Sophia stood in the entrance dressed in PT clothes, her face lined with exhaustion. "Couldn't sleep," she said. She walked closer and noticed the rifle on the workbench, the scattered components, the hollow look in Maya's eyes. What happened? Maya didn't answer. Sophia sat down across from her, uninvited, but not unwelcome. "I've been thinking about what you said, about outlasting the people who refuse to see us." Maya stared at the rifle. "Here's the thing," Sophia continued. "I realized you weren't just talking about me. You were talking about yourself." She paused. I asked around quietly. "Nobody knows exactly who you were before the armory, but everyone knows you were something. Something that scared people enough to make them try to bury you here." Maya looked up. Sophia held her gaze. "Tomorrow isn't just about beating Brennan. It's about proving that women like us don't disappear just because someone wants us to." She leaned forward. "Every female soldier on this base is going to be watching. Every CST candidate. Every woman who's ever been told she doesn't belong behind a rifle." Maya felt something shift in her chest. A crack in the wall she had built around herself. "I'm not a symbol," she said quietly. "Maybe not, but you could be." Sophia stood. "And maybe that's worth fighting for." She left without another word. Maya sat alone in the silence, Sophia's words echoing in her mind. She looked at the rebuilt rifle on the workbench. Then she looked at her footlocker in the corner of the armory, the one she had brought from her apartment months ago, and never opened. She crossed the room and knelt before it. The lock yielded to her combination. Inside, wrapped in oiled cloth, lay a rifle she hadn't touched in 3 years, her rifle. The M2010 she had carried through a dozen missions that never officially happened. The weapon that had made the impossible shot. She lifted it carefully, feeling the familiar weight settle into her hands. On the stock, etched in small, precise letters, was a single name. Sarah. Maya ran her thumb across the letters, feeling the grooves beneath her skin. She had carried Sarah's memory in silence for 3 years, hidden away like something shameful. But Sarah had never been ashamed. Sarah had been proud, fierce, unstoppable. Good shot, 7. Maya closed her eyes and made her decision. Dawn broke gray and cold over Fort Bragg. At Aero 7:30, Maya walked toward Range 29 with steady steps. She did not carry the sabotaged rifle from the range armory. She carried her own weapon, Sarah's name catching the light as the sun crept above the horizon. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was bringing her partner with her. One last time. Range 29 stretched across the Carolina hills like a scar, its firing positions carved into the earth at precise intervals. The morning air was cold and still carrying the faint smell of gun oil and anticipation. They had all come to watch. ODA 7215 stood in a loose cluster near the observation platform, their faces a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Other operators had filtered in from across the base, drawn by rumors of the armorer who thought she could outshoot a Special Forces sniper. Sophia stood apart from the crowd, her arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the access road. Holland waited near Captain Sterling, his expression carefully neutral. Brennan paced at the firing line, his confidence radiating like heat from asphalt. He had dressed for the occasion, his shooting gear immaculate, his rifle already positioned on its bipod. The master sergeant looked like a man who had already won. Then Maya appeared. She walked alone down the access road. Her stride unhurried, her bearing straight. The rifle in her hands was not the weapon from the range armory. It was something else entirely. Its stock worn smooth by years of use, its scope glinting in the early light. Brennan spotted her first. His smile vanished. "What the hell is this?" he demanded. "She's supposed to use the assigned rifle. Those were the terms." Sterling studied Maya as she approached the firing line. "Staff Sergeant, you were informed that personal weapons were not permitted." Maya set her rifle down with careful precision. "The assigned rifle was sabotaged, sir. Hairline crack in the barrel extension. Would have failed catastrophically at distance." A murmur rippled through the watching crowd. Brennan's face reddened. That's a lie. She's making excuses because she knows she can't compete. The rifle is in the range armory, Maya said calmly. Anyone can inspect it. Sterling turned to Holland. Chief, did you know about this? Holland nodded. I examined the weapon myself last night, sir. The damage was deliberate. Staff Sergeant Torres chose not to file a formal complaint because she wanted to compete on the merits. The captain's eyes moved to Brennan, lingering there for a long moment. Then he turned back to Maya. Use your own rifle, Staff Sergeant. The challenge stands. Sir, Brennan protested, this is completely irregular. The terms were clear. The terms were designed to ensure a fair competition, Sterling said coldly. Sabotage is not fair. He gestured toward the firing line. Take your position, Master Sergeant, unless you'd prefer to withdraw. Brennan's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. He moved to his position with barely contained fury. Maya settled into the prone position beside him, her body finding the familiar angles of rifle and earth. The stock pressed against her shoulder like an old friend. The scope brought the distant target into sharp focus. The range officer called the first distance. 2,000 meters. Brennan fired first, his shot cracking across the hills. The spotter confirmed impact, slightly left of center. Maya exhaled slowly. Her finger found the trigger. The rifle spoke. Center mass. The crowd stirred. They moved to 2,500 meters. Brennan adjusted his scope, muttering calculations under his breath. His shot struck the target closer to center this time. Maya fired without hesitation. Dead center, 3,000 meters. The air was perfectly still, but at this distance, even stillness lied. Coriolis effect. Bullet drop. The curvature of the earth itself became a factor. Brennan took his time. His shot hit the outer ring of the target, barely qualifying. Maya adjusted for windage elevation rotation. She fired. Center mass. The murmur in the crowd had grown to open discussion. Someone asked who she was. Someone else said they'd heard rumors. A third voice mentioned something about a classified unit. 3,500 meters. Beyond the range of most military engagements. Beyond what most snipers would ever attempt. Brennan was sweating now. His hands moved too quickly over his rifle, betraying nerves he would never admit. He fired. Miss! The spotter's voice was flat. No impact on target. Brennan cursed and demanded a second attempt. Sterling granted it. His second shot clipped the extreme edge of the target. Maya didn't hurry. She felt the old rhythm returning, the marriage of breath and heartbeat and wind. She saw the target, not as it was, but as it would be when the bullet arrived. Time stretched. The world narrowed. She fired. Impact confirmed. Center mass. The crowd had gone silent. Holland moved to stand beside Sterling. He leaned close and spoke in a voice too low for others to hear. Sir, there's something you should know about Staff Sergeant Torres. Sterling glanced at him. I'm listening. 3 years ago, a classified unit conducted operations in the Hindu Kush, all female, attached to JSOC, call sign Phantom. Holland paused. Staff Sergeant Torres was Phantom 7. She holds the longest confirmed kill by a female sniper in United States military history. Sterling stared at him. How long on 800 meters, sir? The captain turned to look at Maya with new eyes. She lay motionless at the firing line. Her focus absolute, her breathing controlled. The range officer called the final distance. 800 meters. Target is set. Brennan laughed, but the sound was hollow. This is ridiculous. Nobody makes that shot. Not consistently, not under these conditions. Then you have nothing to worry about, Sterling said. Take your shot, Master Sergeant. Brennan settled into position. His hands were steady now, his pride overriding his nerves. He was a Special Forces sniper. He had trained for this his entire career. He fired. The second stretched into eternity. The spotter tracked the vapor trail through his scope. Miss. No impact. Brennan exhaled sharply. He adjusted and fired again. Miss. A third time. Miss. He rolled away from his rifle, his face twisted with frustration. The shot's impossible. The winds shifted. The conditions are wrong. Nobody... He stopped. All eyes had turned to Maya. She lay perfectly still, her eye pressed to the scope, her finger resting against the trigger guard. The target was a speck against the distant hillside, barely visible to the naked eye. But she didn't see a target. She saw a mountainside in Afghanistan. She saw a figure, 800 meters away. She saw Sarah beside her calling the wind. Elevation +2. Wind drifting left 4 clicks. You have the shot 7. Maya made her adjustments. Microscopic movements. Fractions of fractions. The crowd held its breath. She exhaled slowly, emptying her lungs, finding the stillness between heartbeats. Her finger moved to the trigger, and she whispered one word so quiet that only she could hear it. For you, Sarah. The trigger broke clean. Maya felt the recoil roll through her shoulder, familiar as breathing. The rifle spoke once, a sharp crack that echoed across the Carolina hills and faded into silence. Then there was only waiting. The bullet traveled at nearly 3,000 feet per second, but at 800 meters, even that speed meant seconds of flight. Seconds where the round climbed through its arc, fought against gravity and wind and the slow rotation of the earth, and began its descent toward a target that was little more than a speck on the distant hillside. Maya didn't move. Her eye remained pressed to the scope, tracking the vapor trail, reading the wind she could no longer influence. The crowd held its breath. The spotter's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Impact confirmed. Center mass. Nobody spoke. Maya rolled away from her rifle and rose to her feet in one fluid motion. Her face revealed nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just the quiet stillness of someone who had done what needed to be done. The silence shattered. That's impossible, Brennan shouted. He stormed toward the range officer. Check the scope. Check the target. She must have cheated somehow. Master Sergeant. Sterling's voice carried the weight of command. Stand down. She can't have made that shot. Brennan's face was crimson veins pulsing at his temples. I've been shooting for 15 years. I trained with the best snipers in SOCOM. That shot is not possible. And yet, Sterling said coldly, she made it. Brennan turned toward Maya, his hands clenched into fists. This isn't over. I don't know what trick you pulled, but I will find out. I will prove you're a fraud. Maya met his gaze. Her voice was quiet, but carried across the range. No trick, just training. Something in her tone stopped Brennan cold. For a moment, the rage in his eyes flickered, replaced by something else. Recognition, perhaps, or fear. Holland stepped forward before the moment could escalate. Master Sergeant Brennan, he said calmly, I suggest you take some time to cool down. The captain can discuss next steps with you later. Brennan glared at him, then at Maya, then at the watching crowd. He spat on the ground and stalked off toward the parking area, his operators trailing behind in uncomfortable silence. The tension broke like a wave receding from shore. Operators who had come to watch the armorer fail now looked at her with new eyes. Some nodded in grudging respect. Others whispered questions to each other. A few simply stared, trying to reconcile what they had witnessed with what they thought they knew. Holland approached Maya as she gathered her rifle. Phantom 7, he said quietly. I should have known. Maya slung the rifle over her shoulder. You didn't know. You suspected. He smiled slightly. Now I'm certain. He paused. That was the same shot, wasn't it? The one from the Hindu Kush. Maya looked towards the distant target, invisible now without magnification. Same distance? Different mountain. Holland nodded slowly. Your spotter would have been proud. Maya said nothing. She walked off the range alone, her footsteps crunching against the gravel path. Sarah's name gleaming in the morning sun. Behind her, the crowd began to disperse, already transforming what they had witnessed into legend. But Maya Torres wasn't thinking about legends. She was thinking about a promise she had made 3 years ago, standing over Sarah Mitchell's body in the mountains of Afghanistan, a promise she was finally ready to keep. Sterling's voice called from across the parade ground before anyone else could reach her. Staff Sergeant Torres, my office. Maya exchanged a glance with Sophia, then headed toward the command building. The walk felt longer than usual. Every operator she passed turned to watch, some with respect, others with suspicion, all of them recalculating who she was. The captain's office was exactly as she remembered from briefings she'd attended as part of weapons maintenance coordination. Functional, maps, operational reports, the flag of the United States beside the Special Forces crest. Sterling gestured to a chair. Maya remained standing. I'll get straight to the point, Staff Sergeant. ODA 7215 is deploying in 6 weeks. High-value target operation in a contested region. The mission profile requires precision shooting at extended ranges. Maya said nothing. After what I witnessed this morning, I believe you are exactly the kind of shooter we need. I'm offering you a temporary attachment to the team as our designated marksman. The words hung in the air. Maya felt the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. Sir, she said carefully, I appreciate the offer, but I left operational work 3 years ago. I'm an armorer now. You're a sniper, Sterling said. One of the best I've ever seen. The armory was a place to hide. He paused. I'm offering you a chance to stop hiding. Maya looked at the maps on the wall. Afghanistan, the Hindu Kush, the mountains that had taken Sarah. I need time to think, she said. Sterling nodded. You have 48 hours. He stood and extended his hand. Whatever you decide, Staff Sergeant, it was an honor to watch you shoot today. Maya shook his hand and left. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Chen found her in the armory that afternoon, his eyes wide with excitement. Staff Sergeant, everyone's talking about you. The whole armory staff, the whole base. Someone said you made the longest shot in history. Maya continued organizing her workbench. People exaggerate. Not this time, Chen grinned. You're a legend now. He paused. Is it true Captain Sterling offered you a spot on an ODA? News travels fast at Fort Bragg. Everything travels fast. He hesitated. Are you going to take it? Maya didn't answer. Sophia arrived an hour later, her face glowing with news of her own. I passed, she said. The full CST evaluation. Marksmanship tactics, physical fitness, all of it. She grabbed Maya's hands. I couldn't have done it without you. You did the work. But you showed me how. Sophia squeezed her hands. You showed me that women like us can be more than what they expect. She paused. I heard about the captain's offer. You should take it. Maya pulled her hands away gently. It's complicated. It's only complicated because you're making it complicated. Sophia's voice was firm. You have a gift, Staff Sergeant, a gift that can save lives. Hiding it in an armory isn't honoring your partner's memory. Using it is. The words echoed in Maya's mind long after Sophia left. That evening, Maya drove to the military cemetery outside Fort Bragg. The graves stretched in perfect rows across rolling hills, white headstones catching the fading light. She walked slowly among them until she found the one she was looking for. Sergeant Sarah Mitchell, beloved soldier, faithful friend. Maya knelt before the stone and placed her hand against the cool marble. I don't know what to do, she whispered. For 3 years I've been running from what happened, hiding from who I was. But now they're asking me to go back, to pick up the rifle again, to be Phantom 7. The wind stirred the grass around her. I'm scared, Sarah. Scared that I'll fail. Scared that I'll lose someone else. Scared that I'm not the soldier I used to be. She closed her eyes and remembered Sarah's voice. Calm. Steady. Certain. Good shot, 7. Now teach others what I taught you. Maya opened her eyes. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Somewhere in the distance, a bugle played taps. She rose to her feet. I'll make you proud, she said quietly. I promise. The next morning, Maya walked into Captain Sterling's office with her shoulders squared and her chin high. The captain looked up from his desk. Staff Sergeant, you've made your decision. Maya nodded. I'm in, but I have conditions. Sterling leaned forward. What kind of conditions? First, I train your team's designated marksman personally. If I'm going to be responsible for precision shooting on this operation, I need to know what they're capable of and bring them up to standard. The captain nodded. Reasonable. What else? Second, Master Sergeant Brennan doesn't have veto power over my tactical recommendations. I report directly to you on all matters related to long-range engagement. Sterling's expression remained neutral. You're asking me to undermine my senior weapons, Sergeant. I'm asking you to let me do my job without interference from someone who has already demonstrated he can't be trusted. Maya paused. Sir? The captain was silent for a long moment. Then he reached across his desk and extended his hand. Agreed. Welcome to ODA 7245, Staff Sergeant. Maya shook his hand. The deal was done. Word spread quickly through the team. The armorer who had humiliated their weapons sergeant was now attached to their unit. Reactions ranged from curiosity to skepticism to outright hostility. Maya didn't care about their opinions. She cared about their skills. She began training sessions the following morning. 5 designated marksmen, all experienced operators, all convinced they had nothing to learn from an armorer. By the end of the first hour, she had proven them wrong. Her teaching style was precise and unforgiving. She identified weaknesses in their breathing patterns, their trigger discipline, their wind reading abilities. She pushed them to distances they had never attempted and demanded accuracy they thought impossible. The youngest was Corporal Alex Hayes, 24 years old, cocky, convinced his natural talent made him exceptional. Maya recognized the type immediately. She had been that soldier once, before Sarah taught her that talent without discipline was just noise. "You're jerking the trigger," she told him, after his 3rd consecutive miss at 200 meters. "No, I'm not." Hayes' tone carried an edge of defensiveness. Maya walked to his position and knelt beside him. "Your finger is applying lateral pressure to the trigger face, creates a consistent right pull at distance." She demonstrated the correct technique. Straight back, like pressing a button. Hayes adjusted his grip and fired again. The round struck center mass. His eyes widened. "How did you experience?" Maya stood. "Again, 20 rounds. I want to see consistency." By the end of the first week, the team had stopped questioning her credentials. One of them admitted to Holland after a particularly grueling session, "She's the real deal. I've never seen anyone shoot like that. It's like she knows where the bullet's going before she pulls the trigger." Holland smiled. "She does." But not everyone accepted her presence. Brennan found her alone behind the team room on the evening of her 8th day with the unit. The sun had set and shadows pooled between the buildings like dark water. Maya sensed him before she saw him. The heavy footsteps. The controlled breathing of a man holding back rage. She turned to face him. Brennan stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could see the vein pulsing at his temple. "You think you've won," he said. "I think I made a shot that you couldn't make." Maya kept her voice level. "Beyond that, I don't think about you at all." His jaw tightened. "You don't belong here. You never did. Snipers like you hiding in the hills, killing from distances where nobody can touch you." He stepped closer. "You think that makes you a soldier? It makes you a coward." Maya didn't retreat. "Careful, Master Sergeant. My brother was killed by a sniper." The words came out like broken glass. "Kyle, he was 19 years old. First deployment, he never even saw the enemy. Some coward hiding half a mile away put a round through his chest, and he died in the dirt without ever having a chance to fight back." Maya absorbed the information without reacting. "I'm sorry about your brother." "I don't want your sorry." Brennan's voice rose. "I want you to understand what you are, what all snipers are. Murderers who call themselves warriors. Cowards who call themselves heroes." Maya met his gaze. "Your brother died because of bad intel and poor planning. Not because someone was precise enough to make a shot that most men can't dream of." She stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "Blaming the weapon doesn't honor his memory. It just gives you someone to hate." Brennan's hand shot up, grabbing her collar. For a frozen moment, they stood, locked together. His fist twisted in her uniform, her eyes boring into his. Then, Holland's voice cut through the darkness. "Master Sergeant, step back, now." Brennan turned to see Holland approaching, his posture relaxed, but his eyes hard. "This isn't your concern, Chief." "It became my concern when you put hands on a fellow soldier." Holland stopped beside them. "Let her go. Walk away. Cool down." Brennan held on for another heartbeat. Then he released Maya's collar and stepped back, his chest heaving. "This isn't over," he said. Maya straightened her uniform. "Yes, it is." He turned and stalked into the darkness. Holland watched him go, then looked at Maya. "You all right?" "Fine." She brushed off her collar. "He needed to say his piece. And you needed to hear it?" "I already knew." Maya started walking toward the barracks. "Hate like that doesn't come from nowhere. His brother explains a lot." "Doesn't excuse it." "No. But understanding your enemy is the first step to defeating them." 2 days later, the mission briefing changed everything. Captain Sterling gathered the team in the operations center, his face grim. "We have a time-sensitive target," he announced. high-value individual responsible for coordinating attacks against American forces in the region. Intelligence indicates he'll be at a specific location for a 12-hour window starting 48 hours from now. He activated the display screen. The image showed a compound nestled in mountainous terrain surrounded by hostile territory. The target is Konstantin Volkov, Russian arms dealer supplying Taliban forces with advanced weapons systems. The engagement will require precision shots at extended range, potentially beyond 2,000 meters. Environmental conditions will be challenging. Sterling looked directly at Maya. Staff Sergeant Torres will be our primary shooter. The room was silent. Problem, Staff Sergeant? Sterling asked, when Maya remained motionless. The target, Maya said. Volkov. Intel says he's protected by a counter-sniper team. Do we have identification on the shooters? Sterling pulled up a secondary file. Limited information, but there's one name that keeps appearing in the reports. He highlighted a section of text. Ahmed Bashir, Afghan national, former Soviet-trained sniper, been operating in the region for 15 years. Maya's blood turned to ice. How many confirmed kills? Sterling checked the file. 23 American snipers. That we know of. He looked at her. Why? Maya stared at the name on the screen. Ahmad Bashir, the ghost who had haunted her nightmares for 3 years. 3 years ago, she said quietly, my spotter was killed by a counter-sniper in the Hindu Kush. We never got confirmation on the shooter's identity. The mission was classified, the investigation buried. Sterling's expression shifted. You think it was Bashir? I think the odds are good. Maya's hands clenched at her sides. If he's been hunting American snipers for 15 years, and he was operating in that region 3 years ago. The captain closed the file. This doesn't change the mission parameters. Volkov is the primary target. But if Bashir presents himself as a threat, you're authorized to engage? Maya nodded, but inside something had ignited. A cold, focused fury she hadn't felt since the day Sarah died. She spent the next 36 hours in preparation, calibrating her rifle, reviewing terrain data, planning shooting positions, and fallback routes. The team watched her work with a mixture of respect and unease. She had become something different, something colder. On the evening before deployment, an unexpected visitor appeared at the armory. Brennan stood in the doorway, his posture less aggressive than she'd ever seen it. Staff Sergeant, he said. Got a minute? Maya set down her cleaning kit. What do you want, Master Sergeant? He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then the words came, halting and difficult. Kyle didn't die the way I told you. Maya waited. He died from bad intelligence, a patrol route that wasn't properly cleared, leadership that didn't do its job. Brennan's voice was raw. The sniper was just the final piece of a chain of failures that started long before Kyle stepped into that field. He pulled a photograph from his pocket. 2 brothers in uniform, arms around each other. I blamed snipers because I couldn't blame the people actually responsible, because some of those people were friends, colleagues, because admitting the system failed him meant admitting I failed him by not being there. Maya said nothing. I saw you shoot, Brennan continued. I saw the discipline, the precision, the way you train Hayes and the others. He looked up. You're what Kyle could have been with proper training, with proper leadership. He extended his hand. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to help. I did 3 tours in Afghanistan. I know the terrain where you're going. I know the compounds, the wind patterns, the likely sniper positions. Maya stared at his outstretched hand. If Bashir is there, Brennan said, you're going to need every advantage you can get. Let me give you mine. Maya thought of Sarah, of 3 years spent running from the past, of the promise she'd made at a graveside. She took his hand. Deployment brief. Tomorrow morning, 600. Don't be late. Brennan nodded and turned to leave. At the door he paused. For what it's worth, Staff Sergeant, I hope you get him. For your spotter. For Kyle. For all of them. The door closed behind him. Maya stood alone in the armory, surrounded by weapons and tools and the ghosts of soldiers past. She picked up her rifle and ran her fingers across Sarah's name. Tomorrow, she would board a plane and fly back into the mountains. Back to the world that had taken everything from her. But this time, she wouldn't be hiding. This time, she would be hunting. The aircraft lifted into the pre-dawn darkness, its engines a dull roar that made conversation impossible. Maya sat among the operators of ODA 7215, her rifle secured between her knees, Sarah's name hidden beneath her hand. The team was silent, each man lost in his own thoughts, running through mission parameters and contingency plans. Hayes sat across from her, his young face tight, with the nervous energy of someone about to see real combat. Sterling read through intelligence reports on a tablet, his expression unreadable. Holland had come to see her off. His final words echoed in her mind. Bashir is patient. You must be more patient. Outlast him. The flight would take 14 hours. Refueling stops in Germany and Kuwait. Then a final hop into Afghanistan aboard a Chinook that would deposit them in the mountains under cover of darkness. Maya closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but sleep wouldn't come. Instead, she saw Sarah's face, heard her voice calling wind adjustments, felt the weight of her body going limp in Maya's arms. She had failed Sarah once by not being fast enough, not being aware enough, to detect the counter-sniper before he fired. She wouldn't fail her again. The compound sat in a valley ringed by mountains, exactly as the intelligence photos had shown. Maya established her overwatch position on a ridge 800 meters northeast of the target. The position gave her clear lines of sight to the main building, the vehicle depot, and the eastern approach, where Volkov would most likely attempt escape. It also left her exposed to counterfire from the western ridge. If Bashir was here, that's where he would be. The mirror position, the place that offered the same advantages she now held. She settled into the prone position and began her scan. Through the scope, the compound transformed from a distant cluster of buildings into a detailed landscape of walls and windows and human shapes. 2 sentries on the north wall. 1 roving patrol near the eastern gate, exactly as briefed. Maya keyed her radio. Overwatch in position. I have eyes on the compound. 2 sentries north wall, 1 roving patrol east gate. Sterling's voice crackled in her earpiece. Copy. We're 3 minutes out. The team moved through the darkness below her position, invisible even to her trained eyes. They flowed like water around obstacles, using every shadow, every depression in the terrain. Maya tracked the sentries through her scope. The first one never saw it coming. He stepped into a patch of open ground silhouetted against the compound wall. Overwatch, you're cleared hot on Sentry 1. Maya exhaled. Her fingers squeezed. The rifle spoke. The sentry dropped. Tango down, she reported. Sentry 2 moving to investigate. The second man rushed toward his fallen comrade. His weapon raised his head, swiveling in confusion. At this distance, in this darkness, he had no idea where death had come from. Maya adjusted her aim. Fired. 2 down. Roving patrol still unaware. You have clear approach to East Gate. The team moved forward. Maya tracked their progress, her finger hovering near the trigger, ready to eliminate any threat that emerged. The patrol appeared around the corner of the compound just as the team reached the gate. Contact. 3 tangos 60 meters east of your position. They haven't seen you yet. Sterling's voice came back. Can you take them? Maya calculated angles. 3 targets moving western, 700 meters. Wind from the southwest at 8 knots. Affirmative. She fired 3 times in 4 seconds. 3 bodies hit the ground. Path clear. Proceed to primary objective. The team breached the compound with explosive efficiency. Maya listened to the radio chatter as they cleared room after room, neutralizing resistance, searching for Volkov. Then Sterling's voice cut through the noise. Jackpot. We have eyes on the HVT. He's moving toward a vehicle on the south side of the compound. Maya shifted her position, scanning the southern approach. A black SUV sat near a rear gate, its engine running. A cluster of armed men surrounded a figure in expensive tactical gear, hurrying him toward the vehicle. Volkov. I have the target, Maya said, but he's surrounded. 8 to 10 armed escorts. Range is 200 to 300 meters. Can you make the shot? Maya studied the scene through her scope. Volkov was moving. The escorts clustered tightly around him. The wind had picked up, gusting unpredictably across the valley. At this distance, even a slight miscalculation would send the bullet wide. She heard Sarah's voice. Calm, steady, certain. Elevation +3. Wind correction right 6 clicks. You have the shot 7. I can make it, Maya said. Take the shot. She exhaled, completely emptying her lungs. Her heartbeat slowed to a crawl. The world contracted to a single point, 300 meters away. Volkov paused at the vehicle door, turning to speak to one of his escorts. Now! The rifle kicked against her shoulder. The bullet traveled for nearly 3 seconds, climbing and falling through the thin mountain air. Volkov collapsed against the SUV and slid to the ground. HVT eliminated, Maya reported. The compound erupted into chaos. Armed men poured from buildings, firing blindly into the darkness. The team fought their way toward the extraction point, trading rounds with enemies they could barely see. Maya became their guardian angel. She picked off threats as they emerged. A man with an RPG on a rooftop. A machine gunner setting up near the main gate. A vehicle attempting to flank the team's position. Each shot precise. Each target eliminated. She had fired 17 rounds when everything changed. The round passed so close to her head, she felt the displacement of air. It struck the rock 6 inches from her scope, spraying her face with fragments. Counter-sniper. Maya rolled away from her position instantly, muscle memory overriding conscious thought. She relocated 20 meters downslope, finding cover behind a boulder cluster. Her heart hammered against her ribs. That shot had been perfect. If she hadn't shifted at the last microsecond to track a new target, it would have taken her head off. She keyed her radio. Be advised, counter-sniper active. Western Ridge, approximately 400 meters from my position. Sterling's voice came back tense. Can you identify? Maya scanned the Western Ridge through her scope. Nothing. No muzzle flash. No movement. Whoever had fired that shot was a ghost. Just like 3 years ago. Negative. He's repositioned. She paused. But I know who it is. She didn't need confirmation. Didn't need to see his face. That shot, that precision, that patience told her everything. Bashir. The radio crackled. It was Hayes, and his voice carried an edge of panic. Overwatch, we're pinned down. Multiple hostiles advancing on our position. We need fire support. Maya's training warred with her instincts. The team needed her, but engaging would reveal her new position to Bashir, and he was waiting for exactly that. Stand by, she said. She scanned the compound. Hayes and 2 other operators were trapped behind a low wall, taking fire from 3 sides. They had perhaps 2 minutes before they were overrun. Sterling's voice cut through. 7, we need you now. Maya made her choice. She identified the nearest threat, a group of 4 men advancing with automatic weapons. She exhaled and fired. The lead man dropped. She worked the bolt and fired again, and again, and again. 4 threats eliminated. But her position was compromised. The second counter-sniper round struck the boulder she was using for cover, punching through rock like paper. Bashir had tracked her muzzle flash and adjusted with terrifying speed. Maya rolled again, abandoning her rifle and grabbing the backup weapon she'd positioned 15 meters away. Hayes' M2010, set up as insurance against exactly this scenario. Through the backup scope, she finally saw him. A figure on the Western Ridge, partially concealed behind rocks. At 400 meters, he was little more than a shadow. But he was there, and he was aiming directly at her new position. How did he know? The answer came with sick certainty. He was reading her the way Sarah used to read her, anticipating her movements, her choices, her patterns. He had studied Phantom 7, studied her missions, her methods. This wasn't a duel. It was an execution he'd been planning for 3 years. Maya's radio crackled. 7, we're moving to extraction. Need you to cover our 6. She couldn't answer. Couldn't take her eye from the scope, because the moment she did, Bashir would fire. They were locked. 2 snipers each with a perfect shot, each waiting for the other to blink first. Time stretched. Her finger rested on the trigger. Her breathing slowed to nothing. And then Bashir moved. It was the smallest shift, a millimeter adjustment of his rifle. But it was enough. Maya saw where he was aiming. Not at her. At the extraction point, where Sterling and the team were retreating. He was going to kill Hayes, the young corporal who reminded her of herself, before Sarah, before the mountains, before everything. In that frozen moment, Maya understood. She could shoot Bashir now, take the kill shot, get her revenge for Sarah. But Hayes would die. Maybe Sterling too. The angle was wrong for a warning shot, wrong for a wound. It was Bashir or the team. Sarah's voice whispered in her mind. Not the battlefield Sarah, the teaching Sarah. The mentor who had shaped her into something more than just a shooter. A sniper's duty isn't killing, it's protecting the team. Maya shifted her aim 6 inches, away from Bashir's head, away from his chest, to his rifle. It was an impossible shot. At 400 meters, hitting a man-sized target was difficult. Hitting a rifle scope was insane. But she was Phantom 7. And impossible was just another word for difficult. She exhaled. The world stopped. She whispered one more time. This one's for both of us, Sarah. She fired. The bullet traveled for 4 eternal seconds. Through her scope, she watched the impossible become real. Bashir's rifle exploded. The scope shattered, the weapon torn from his hands by the impact of a round that had traveled more than 2 miles to find its target. He rolled away from his position, exposed, disarmed, his hands going up even as he scrambled for cover. Sterling's voice erupted in her ear. Sniper threat eliminated. All units move to extraction. Maya watched through her scope as Bashir scrambled across the ridge, trying to reach a secondary weapon. But the team's designated marksman had spotted him now. 3 rifles swung toward his position. He raised his hands in surrender. Target secured, Sterling reported. We have the counter-sniper, alive. Maya lowered her rifle. Her hands were shaking. She had chosen the team over revenge. Protection over retribution. Just as Sarah had taught her. The extraction was clean. The Chinook arrived on schedule rotors, beating the air like thunder. The team loaded Volkov's body and their prisoner secured and hooded. Maya was the last aboard. She took a seat near the rear ramp, her rifle across her knees. Exhaustion settling into her bones like lead. Hayes sat beside her. His face was pale, his hands trembling with adrenaline crash. You saved my life, he said quietly. I saw where he was aiming. You could have killed him, but you chose to save me instead. Maya didn't respond. She was watching the hooded figure secured near the front of the aircraft. Bashir, the ghost who had haunted her nightmares. The man who had killed Sarah. And now she would have to watch him get debriefed, processed, traded for intelligence. He would never face justice for Sarah's death because Sarah's mission never officially existed. But he was alive, and the team was alive, and that had to be enough. Sterling made his way back to her position, steadying himself against the aircraft's movement. That was the damnedest shot I've ever seen, he shouted over the rotor noise. You could have taken him. Why didn't you? Maya looked up at him. Because taking him would have cost Hayes. Maybe others. Sterling nodded slowly. Your spotter would have been proud. I know, Maya said. That's why I did it. Fort Bragg welcomed them home 72 hours later. The reception was different this time. Word had spread about the mission. Details were classified, but results never stayed secret for long. The armorer who had humiliated Brennan on Range 29 had just provided overwatch for one of the most successful HVT operations in recent memory, and she had captured Ahmad Bashir, the legendary counter-sniper who had killed 23 American shooters. Maya ignored the attention. She returned to the armory, cleaned her rifle, and tried to find the silence that had once been her sanctuary. But the world had other plans. Chen found her that afternoon, his eyes wide. Staff Sergeant, there's a general here to see you. Maya looked up. A general. A 2-star. He's in Captain Sterling's office. Chen swallowed. He asked for you by name? She set down her cleaning kit and walked to the command building. The general stood when she entered. He was a tall man with silver hair and the bearing of someone who had spent decades in service. A black case sat on Sterling's desk. Staff Sergeant Torres, the general said. I've been reviewing your record. The parts that aren't redacted anyway. He smiled slightly. Impressive doesn't begin to cover it. Thank you, sir. He opened the case. Inside, resting on velvet, was a silver star. This is for your actions during the recent operation, he said. 17 confirmed kills in a single engagement. Precision fire support that enabled the successful elimination of a high-value target. And the capture of Ahmad Bashir, one of our most wanted enemy combatants. He paused. But that's not the only reason I'm here. The general reached into his jacket and produced an envelope bearing the seal of the President of the United States. Your classified file has been reviewed at the highest levels. The mission in the Hindu Kush 3 years ago. The shot at 3,800 meters. The loss of Sergeant Sarah Mitchell. His voice softened. The president believes that actions like yours should not remain hidden, and that sacrifices, like Sergeant Mitchell's, deserve recognition. He extended the envelope toward her. Staff Sergeant Torres, on behalf of a grateful nation, I am here to inform you that you have been nominated for the Distinguished Service Cross, and Sergeant Mitchell has been nominated posthumously for the Silver Star. Maya stared at the envelope. For 3 years, she had believed Sarah's death meant nothing, that her sacrifice had been buried in classified files, forgotten by everyone except Maya. But she had been wrong. She took the envelope with trembling hands. The ceremony was held on a crisp autumn morning 6 months later. The parade ground filled with soldiers in dress uniforms standing at attention. Maya stood at the front, her silver star gleaming on her chest, the citation for the Distinguished Service Cross folded in her pocket. The general, who had visited her office, now addressed the assembled crowd, his voice carrying across the field. Staff Sergeant Torres represents the finest traditions of the United States Army. Her actions in recent operations resulted in the elimination of a high-value target responsible for the deaths of dozens of American service members. Her precision, her courage, and her dedication to her fellow soldiers embody everything we aspire to be. He paused, letting the words settle over the crowd. But today we also recognize actions that have remained classified for too long. 3 years ago, Staff Sergeant Torres conducted an operation that saved the lives of 12 American operators. At a range that most considered impossible, under conditions that would have broken lesser soldiers, she made a shot that changed the course of a mission. The general's voice softened. She did so at great personal cost, losing her spotter and partner Sergeant Sarah Mitchell in the same engagement. Sergeant Mitchell's sacrifice and Staff Sergeant Torres's extraordinary skill deserve to be remembered. He turned to face Maya directly. Additionally, I am authorized to announce that the Phantom Unit has been officially declassified. The 7 women who served as part of Joint Special Operations Command's most elite precision element can now be recognized for their extraordinary contributions to our nation's defense. The general gestured to a section of the crowd where 6 women in dress uniforms stood. They were different ages, different ranks, but they all shared the same quiet intensity in their eyes. The surviving members of Phantom. These women conducted operations that saved hundreds of American lives. They deserve our recognition and our gratitude. The applause that followed was thunderous. Maya stood motionless, her face composed, her eyes fixed on a point somewhere beyond the crowd. She thought of Sarah. She thought of the mountains. She thought of 3 years spent hiding from a legacy that had finally caught up with her. After the ceremony, the crowd dispersed into smaller gatherings. Soldiers congratulated her. Officers shook her hand. But the moments that mattered happened away from the cameras. Sophia found her near the edge of the parade ground, her own uniform crisp and new, the combat action badge gleaming on her chest. "Congratulations, Staff Sergeant." Maya smiled. "I should be saying that to you." She reached into her pocket and produced a small pin. "Cultural support team fully qualified." Sophia's eyes widened. "How did you know?" "Captain Sterling told me this morning." Maya pinned the insignia to Sophia's chest. "You earned this, every step of the way." Sophia blinked back tears. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have." Maya stepped back to admire her work. "I just reminded you that you were stronger than they wanted you to believe." They embraced. 2 soldiers who had found something rare in each other. Understanding, respect, hope. Chen appeared next, practically bouncing with excitement. "Staff Sergeant, did you see?" He gestured toward the armory building. "They put a plaque outside the door. It has your name on it." Maya raised an eyebrow. "A plaque? For distinguished service to the weapons maintenance program." Chen grinned. "I helped polish it this morning." Maya shook her head, but a smile tugged at her lips. "You've come a long way, Specialist." "I had a good teacher." His expression grew serious. "I know you're probably going to be doing other things now, important things, but I wanted you to know that everything you taught me, I'm going to pass on." He straightened. "The armory is in good hands." "I know it is." Brandon found her as the ceremony ended. He stood at attention, then extended his hand. "Permission to speak freely, Staff Sergeant." Maya took his hand. "Granted. I enrolled in your next training cycle." Sterling approved it. He paused. Figured it's time this old dog learned from the best. Maya studied him. The anger that had defined him for so long had faded, replaced by something quieter. Understanding, perhaps. Class starts Monday, 0600. Don't be late, student. Brennan almost smiled. Wouldn't dream of it, instructor. He turned to leave, then stopped. Kyle would have liked you. He always respected people who earned their place. Then let's make sure others get the same chance he deserved. Brennan nodded and walked away, his shoulders straighter than she'd ever seen them. Holland found her last. As the crowd thinned and the afternoon shadows lengthened, he stood beside her in comfortable silence, watching the flag flutter in the breeze. She'd be proud, he said finally. Sarah, she'd be proud of everything you've become. Maya was quiet for a long moment. I hope so. I know so. Holland turned to face her. I read the after-action reports from your old unit, the ones that aren't completely redacted anyway. She believed in you. She pushed you to be better. She died knowing you were the best shooter she'd ever worked with. She died because I wasn't fast enough to save her. Holland shook his head. She died because war is cruel and random and unfair. But her sacrifice meant something. Your shot saved 12 lives that day. And your shots over the past months have saved dozens more. He placed a hand on her shoulder. That's her legacy. That's what you carry forward. Maya nodded slowly, the weight on her chest easing just slightly. Captain Sterling approached as Holland departed. Staff Sergeant? The captain's expression was warm, a rare departure from his usual stoicism. I have a proposal for you. Sir, ODA 7215 needs a permanent precision shooting specialist. Someone to train our marksmen, advise on long-range engagements, and deploy when a mission requires extraordinary accuracy. He paused. I'd like that person to be you. Maya considered the offer. A position, a team, a purpose beyond hiding in an armory. I'd be honored, sir. Sterling smiled. Welcome to the team, Staff Sergeant. Officially this time. That night, she drove to the military cemetery. Sarah's grave was silver in the moonlight, the headstone unchanged since her last visit. Maya knelt before it and placed something on the earth, the citation for the Silver Star. Sarah's name printed in official text. This belongs to you, she whispered. Everything I am, everything I did, you made possible. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You pushed me to be better. You died so I could live. The wind stirred the grass around her. I'm not hiding anymore, Sarah. I'm carrying you forward. Every shot, every mission, every soldier I train. She touched the cool marble. You're with me, always. She rose and walked back to her car. The next morning, Maya arrived at the armory to find a group of new recruits waiting outside. Fresh faces, nervous energy, the unmistakable look of soldiers who hadn't yet learned what they were capable of. Among them stood a young woman with sharp eyes and calloused hands. She held herself with quiet confidence, her gaze steady, her posture balanced. She reminded Maya of someone. Two someones, actually. The young woman stepped forward. Staff Sergeant Torres, I'm Private Jenny Park. I was told to report to you for weapons familiarization. Maya studied her for a long moment. The cycle was beginning again. Follow me, she said. 6 months changed everything and nothing. Maya still arrived at Building 4127 before dawn. She still cleaned weapons with the same methodical precision that had defined her years in the armory. The smell of solvent and gun oil still hung in the air like incense in a cathedral. But now, the building served a different purpose. The Precision Marksmanship Program occupied the East Wing, a dedicated space for training the next generation of Army marksmen. Maya had designed the curriculum herself, drawing on everything she had learned in places that didn't officially exist. Private Park was her first student. The young woman had proven herself in the initial weeks of training, displaying the same quiet intensity that Maya recognized from her own reflection. She learned quickly, asked smart questions, and never made the same mistake twice. She reminded Maya of Sarah more every day. Sophia visited whenever her CST duties allowed, which was less often, now that she'd been attached to her own operational unit. But she always made time to stop by the armory to share coffee and stories, and the unspoken bond that connected them. You're building something important here, Sophia told her one afternoon. Something that will outlast both of us. Maya shrugged. I'm just teaching people to shoot. No. Sophia shook her head. You're teaching them to believe in themselves. That's different. Chen had taken over the day-to-day operations of the armory. His once clumsy hands now moved with practiced confidence. He had become a fine armorer, patient and precise. The kind of soldier who took pride in doing invisible work well. Sometimes, Maya caught him teaching the new specialists the same techniques she had taught him, the cycle continuing. Holland dropped by, occasionally, usually with coffee and war stories from his Delta days. He never stayed long, but his visits meant something. A reminder that she wasn't alone, that there were others who understood what it meant to carry the weight of classified memories. Sterling deployed UDA 7-2 fifth time, twice more in those 6 months. Both times Maya provided overwatch. Both times, every operator came home alive. Her reputation grew beyond Fort Bragg. Requests arrived from other units, other bases, other branches. Could Staff Sergeant Torres consult on their sniper programs? Could she evaluate their marksmen? Could she teach a masterclass on extreme range engagement? She said yes to some no to others. She had learned that her time and energy were finite resources best invested in the people who would carry the mission forward. On a bright morning in early spring, Maya stood at the front of a classroom filled with soldiers from across the special operations community. The topic was extreme range shooting. She walked them through the physics: bullet drop, wind drift, the Coriolis effect, the way the atmosphere bent light and distorted perception at distances beyond 2,000 meters. She explained the mental discipline required, the breathing techniques, the heartbeat control, the meditation that transformed chaos into stillness. The soldiers listened with rapt attention. These weren't beginners. They were experienced operators, men and women, who had proven themselves in combat. But they had come to learn from someone who had done what most considered impossible. Near the back of the room, a young sergeant raised his hand. He had the swagger of someone who hadn't yet learned humility. Staff Sergeant, he said, I've heard the stories, but I have to ask, can anyone really hit a target at 3,800 meters? Or is that just legend? The room went quiet. Every eye turned to Maya. She stood motionless at the front of the classroom, remembering another time when someone had asked a similar question. A lifetime ago, in an armory that had been her hiding place. But she wasn't hiding anymore. A smile touched her lips, small, genuine. The first real smile that many in the room had ever seen from her. It's not a legend, she said. It's physics discipline and a willingness to believe that impossible is just another word for difficult. She picked up her rifle from the table beside her. Let me show you. The class followed her to range 29. The same range where she had faced Brennan. The same firing positions. The same distant targets that had witnessed her return from shadows. Maya settled into the prone position, her body finding the angles that had become as natural as breathing. Park knelt beside her spotting scope, ready unconsciously, mirroring the position Sarah had once occupied. Wind from the southwest, Park reported. 6 knots steady. Elevation adjustment plus 2.5. Maya made the corrections. Her finger found the trigger. The soldiers watched in silence. She thought of Sarah. Not with grief this time, but with gratitude. For the years they had shared. For the lessons that lived on. For the voice that still whispered in her ear when the shot mattered most. Good shot, 7. The rifle spoke, 3. 800 meters away. The target shuddered with impact. Center mass. The soldiers erupted in applause, but Maya barely heard them. She was looking at her rifle, at the name etched into the stock, at the letters worn smooth by years of handling. Sarah. She was no longer the silent woman who cleaned weapons and avoided eye contact. She was no longer hiding from her past or running from her grief. She was exactly what she had been trained to be. A precision instrument, a guardian, a teacher. And she was carrying her partner forward, one shot at a time. Later that evening, Sophia found her alone on the range. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. You know what I learned from you, Sophia said quietly. More than shooting, more than tactics. Maya looked at her. I learned that strength doesn't have to be loud, that the quietest people in the room are often the most powerful, that hiding your gifts doesn't protect anyone. Sophia paused. You taught me that being seen is not a weakness. It's a responsibility. Maya considered the words. A year ago, she would have deflected them, hidden from the compliment, retreated into silence. But she was done retreating. Thank you, she said simply. They stood together as the sun sank below the horizon, two soldiers who had found their place in a world that hadn't always wanted them. The next morning, Maya returned to the range at dawn. She settled into position, her rifle steady, Sarah's name catching the first light of day. She exhaled. She fired. And somewhere in whatever place the fallen find peace, Sarah smiled. The armory was her church, and silence had been her sermon. But now, Maya Torres had found her voice, and she was teaching others to find theirs. One shot at a time, one student at a time, one life saved at a time. The legacy of Phantom 7 lived on, not in classified files or buried commendations, but in every soldier who learned that precision mattered, that discipline mattered, that protecting the team was the highest calling. Maya cleaned her rifle as the sun climbed higher, the familiar ritual grounding her in purpose. Chen appeared at the armory door. Staff Sergeant, the new class starts in 20 minutes. 22 students this time. You ready? Maya set down her cleaning cloth and stood. She looked at the rifle one more time, at Sarah's name gleaming in the morning light. Ready? She said. She walked toward the classroom, toward the students who waited to learn toward the future that Sarah had died believing in. 3 years later, the numbers told the story that Maya never would. The precision marksmanship program had trained 247 soldiers. 43% were women. Their mission success rate stood at 96%, zero friendly fire incidents, 17 high-value targets eliminated, 32 American lives saved through precision overwatch. But Maya didn't measure success in numbers. She measured it in Jenny Park, now Sergeant Park, training her own students with the same three-finger technique Sarah had invented. She measured it in Sophia Reyes, leading the first all-female CST element into combat and coming home whole. She measured it in Alexa Hayes, no longer cocky but confident, making impossible shots look routine. She measured it in Cole Brennan, who spent his retirement teaching young snipers that hatred was heavier than any rifle. And she measured it every morning when she cleaned her rifle and ran her thumb across Sarah's name, knowing that her partner's legacy lived not in classified files, but in the soldiers who learned that protecting the team was the highest calling. Staff Sergeant Maya Torres, Phantom 7, had finally come home. Not to the armory where she'd hidden, but to the purpose Sarah had died believing in. One shot at a time, one student at a time, one life saved at a time. The silent guardian had found her voice, and it echoed in every range, every classroom, every mission where precision meant the difference between loss and victory. Sarah would have been proud,